Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Comics Week in Review, the movie edition, and this week's special Emmy edition. My name is Stephen McGauley, editor-in-chief of TMStash.com, and with me tonight is John Gruccio, our head and movie writer. How we doing, John?
Doing pretty good, Steven.
Awesome. Fun weekend. Not so much in the box office, not a whole lot happening, but Guardians of the Galaxy, which I will continue to talk about because it's my favorite movie this summer and is proven by the numbers this summer that it is the number one movie in the box office as it passes Transformers Age of Extinction to become the highest grossing movie of the summer at the domestic box office, which made me a little giddy inside because I knew this movie was going to be good going in, and finally the numbers are there to back it up. Made about 17.2 million this weekend, and right behind it was Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with 16.7 million. So, pretty strong weekend as far as a couple movies that have been out for a few weeks. Oh, John, you haven't even seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles yet, have you?
Like I said, we talked about it last time, but I've only seen like bits and pieces. But I mean, I've also heard really good things.
Like I said last week, it's fun. Or I guess it was probably 2 weeks now. We skipped last week. It had some scheduling conflicts, but
It just makes me laugh because I know you're in love with Guardians of the Galaxy. I just remember everybody always forgets that X-Men: Days of Future Past, when it first came out, everybody was on that ship. And it's like, Guardians is such a gamble. I don't know if it's going to be so big. Now it's like taking the ultimate title of movie of the summer.
well, it's kind of like the underdog story. This because no one expected this movie to do anything because it's not the Avengers, it's not the X-Men, it's not a comic that many people, hardly any people, were really all that familiar with. Really, just like some people in the hardcore comic book world knew about it, but it was an unknown and was looked at as a huge risk for Marvel to go in that direction. And it just goes to show that they can pull it off, which just gives that much credence to the Marvel universe and gives hope for movies like Ant-Man coming down the pipeline.
Yes, Ant-Man. I can't wait.
So I mean it's really refreshing to see that a new storyline was able to take off in the movie theater in a realm of relatively unoriginal content in the movie theaters these days. It was refreshing to see an underdog story like this that you could call more original content than we're used to seeing. The constant the silly Transformer movies that we keep getting every couple years that just keep getting worse and worse, even when you throw big names in there.
You know what the
Uh,
funniest thing is? Mark Wahlberg wasn't even the worst part of that movie.
I know, that's what's sad. No, Mark Wahlberg was probably the best part about that movie.
It's like, you're a Transformer. That's
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, so that's just sad. You throw in Mark Wahlberg, you still can't get anything. So I'm happy for Guardians. It lends credence to the story and that it's going to continue to move on and it's going to start blending with the Avengers, which you talked about. And it's going to be a great story going forward.
Very true.
On a lighter note, Let's Be Cops, which got crushed by critics. Still doing pretty good. 10.8 million this weekend. It's earned like 45.1 million. I've yet to see it. I really want to see it. I think it looks really funny. I just haven't had the time to get out to see it, which is probably why the numbers are low because it's kind of been hidden. But to
Yeah.
get to the nitty gritty of really what the most unfortunate part of this weekend isn't Let's Be Cops. It's really Sin City: A Dame to Kill. A Dame to Kill 4 only made 6.32 million. 78% less than what the original Sin City made, according to Box Office Mojo. I mean, what do you got to see this, John? What did you think of the movie for 6.3 million?
Well, You see, Steven, I think honestly, I mean, it's almost been a decade since the first one, and
Yeah.
like, uh, they did a lot of things right in this movie. First off, they cast Josh Brolin, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Eva Green in roles as the new Dwight, uh, Eva Lord, or Ava Lord, I apologize, and Johnny. They just take the movie in its own direction. And then you've got characters such as Powers Booth, who had a very minimum role in the first one, who is just as evil as ever in this sequel. But you see, the things that they're really taken for granted in this movie are the people who came back. Mickey Rourke is pretty much just a piece of meat in this one, and Bruce Willis, for a guiding spirit, he's pretty much distant even for that.
Yep.
Now, that's not to say that there weren't any good performances. Like I said, Powers Booth's performance was very good. Jessica Alba gave a very
She
surprise.
stole the movie, and
She
she
did.
barely speaks in the movie. Spoilers, sorry, but
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, Frank Miller, I mean, for those of you who are comic book fans, he is a legend in the field. I mean, visually, the film is just mesmerizing, especially when it comes to Eva Green's parts with Ava Lord. The way they portray her character, I mean, it's a man's fantasy whenever you see her on the screen. But getting back to Frank Miller, it's not very easy to take something that you wrote that got many awards and transfer it to the screen, which I think he did a good job. It's just stuff's just lost in translation. And also, me personally, one of the aspects I really loved with the first movie is that they had Tarantino involved. This time, he's not even involved.
and that's a good transition to kind of what I want to talk about this movie, because of the things that I didn't like about this movie, the one major thing that I didn't like, and what you can really feel the lack of Tarantino, is that the movie was still written in a style of Tarantino where it was in bits and pieces, and it was telling each kind of character's parts of the story, and then it kind of all pulls it together in the end, a la a typical Tarantino movie, which is something that I loved about the first film because I love Tarantino's films. But A Dame to Kill For felt choppy. None of those pieces, they just seem to kind of fall off, and then all of a sudden you're in Joseph Gordon-Levitt's story, which I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's amazing in the movie, but the whole story just felt so it just doesn't flow right. On a
Yeah,
good
I felt the same way.
like on the good side though, what I did like about the movie and what was the coolest part was to see that almost a decade later, to see the technology, if with the advanced technology, how they were able to really do this movie and do it in the same format that they did before, with the black and white with your pops of color where it needed to be. But it was so like visually stunning. Like the visuals in the movie are outstanding. They're so good, and it's just so sad that what is still a good story just didn't have the right flow to pull it all together to make it an amazing movie. Because it
I
could
mean,
have been a really great movie, but I think it was just a good movie because of the choppy flow in it.
I went to go see it in 3D, and I was surprised that how good it was in 3D. Like they really got the 3D aspect of it very good, very right. But I mean,
I agree.
in the scheme of things, was it the worst movie ever? No. Was it probably something that probably should have been released earlier? Yes. And I mean, I think it'll probably perk up as we get into like Labor Day and stuff like that. I'm sure there'll probably be more people going to see it. And all I can say is that I hope it doesn't take them another decade to do another one, since they've said they want to.
Yeah, and it's going to make it even harder with the fact that the numbers are so low on this. So I hope more people do go see it, because it is definitely a movie worth seeing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 good, and like the story flowed better in the first movie, but I think the content of the story in this movie was up to par, if not even slightly better than the first Sin City. It's just
We also, You also have to think that Sin City, when it first came out, was new, and people have already seen that one. And this is kind of you were a fish out of water the first time, and now it's kind of like, well, I've already seen that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of hurting. That's kind of hurting at the box office. And at that point in time, the comic was still pretty fresh,
Mm.
and people were really eager to see it come to life in the movie theater. And at this point, the comics I should say, graphic novels, to be proper, are older now. And he wrote a few extra stories to kind of go along for this movie, but it wasn't something fresh enough, I think, in a lot of people's minds that they're like, oh, I gotta go see this. As much as we'd had in the first one, we were getting, Frank Miller and Sin City, and it was all new, like you said. So, that kind of gives you the inflated numbers. So I'm really disappointed to see that it only made $6 million, because it's definitely a movie that should have probably taken number one in the box office this week. It
Oh
should have
yeah.
at least made 25, 35 million. But it's they didn't market it very much either.
I
Marketing
mean,
was low on this film.
yeah. I mean, a good thing to think about, as I said, with Labor Day, the only real movie coming out in the next couple of weeks is November Man with Pierce Brosnan. So, I mean, if people are really wanting to go to theaters and they're wanting to see something new, Sin City might take some of that money, just because between here and now, there's really nothing coming out. I think the next thing coming out is the middle of September. It's really going to be a box office smash. I think that's Maze Runner,
Yeah.
but
So I mean, if you want to catch the fuel review, I know John's working on his full review. He'll have it up on the site here shortly. So
should be
check
up
it out.
tomorrow evening.
Yeah, and I guess in the end, my vote, go see it. It's not the greatest movie this summer. It's not Guardians, but it's definitely something. You've probably seen Guardians a couple times by now. Um, I'm gonna go see it again this week. But I've already seen Sin City, and I really recommend everybody go check it out. I think it's definitely one of a movie worth seeing this summer. Uh, Moving on away from movies, since well, you got something else about movies, don't you, John?
Yeah, a couple of things. Today, for those of you who know, we spoke last time about about a comedian by the name of Robin Williams who passed away. Another comedian who passed away shortly before his time was Mr. Richard Pryor, who made a very big name of himself. He was like the first Eddie Murphy, first Eddie Murphy, loud, obnoxious, didn't give a crap who he offended. Well, the news today has been that Richard Pryor's biopic, which has been in the works for many, many years, has finally been casted. And Mr. Mike Epps of Friday and the Hangover fame will be playing Pryor in a film that will be directed by Lee Daniels, who recently directed The Butler and Precious. It is assumed that Oprah Winfrey will be producing the film, uh, and that the Weinstein Company will be distributing it. There have been no set dates on when they will start filming or when the film will be coming out. But I would say, Stephen, probably the best bet is that they're probably going to be aiming at award season for this film. Other than that, as far as movie news,
I like
it's
that
been
pick, by
an
the way. I think Mike Epps is good, and the Weinstein Company is awesome at these type of films. So, I'm interested. I like the direction where this is going.
I mean, there was a picture on Twitter where he was kissing the late Richard Pryor's wife's ring. Because I think this is just a done deal. Like the Pryors have been very, very tight gripped on who's taking this project. So I mean, for him to get it's quite an honor. I mean, I've always been on the Eddie Murphy bandwagon myself, just because I've desperately wanted to see Murphy get an Oscar. But other than that, other movie news, it was announced today that Tom Hanks and Ron Howard will start production in April of 2015 on the third installment in the Dan Brown series, Inferno. And Tom Hanks will once again be reprising the character of Robert Langdon. For those of you who've seen the other movies, The Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, they've always been box office hits. And they're very good movies. Other than that, before we get into, I think, some Emmy news, it was announced last night that the creator of Hannibal, the hit show Hannibal, Brian Fuller and Jodie Foster were seen together, and a possibility that Jodie Foster may be involved in season 3 somehow has been announced. I do not think that Clarice Starling will be making an appearance, but the more, I guess, the more correct guess I would be is that Jodie Foster will perhaps be directing an episode of Hannibal, which still is quite an amazing. I mean, I definitely would watch that, and I don't even watch Hannibal, so I mean, that is definitely something to look
I
forward
didn't
to.
watch it. I knew a lot of people that liked the series, so
I watched the first
I'm
series, but I kind of fell behind this past series.
yeah.
But as far as movies and TV news, that's all I've got. I know I've posted a lot of trailers here recently on the site. Some of them are Men, Women, and Children, a Jason Reitman drama which stars Adam Sandler, Rosemary DeWitt, and just a whole slew of other talented people. Kevin Smith's Tusk. It's a horror comedy with Justin Long. Just check
Which
them out.
for the record, for those of you going to Fantastic Fest coming up here in September, Tusk is the main attraction. It's showing at Toronto Film Festival the week before, and will be getting shown at Fantastic Fest coming up here.
I mean, a Kevin Smith horror comedy film. What's not to see? I mean, but as far as movies and TV news, Steven, that's all I've got, man.
Awesome. So it goes without saying, John mentioned the Emmys. We couldn't come on here and not talk about the Emmys. I know we focus a little bit more on movies, but the Emmys, being so many great actors and actresses taking part, and the crossover between movie and television being so close these days, can't really ignore what's happening there in the Emmys. And I know you were a little surprised by some of the picks. I really wasn't. I mean, when it really comes down to it, Breaking Bad just owned it. Outstanding drama, best lead actor,
Supporting actor, lead actress. No,
yeah,
supporting.
lead actress.
Well, I tell you what,
Outstanding lead actress went to Juliana Margulies as Alicia Florrick in The Good Wife.
Well, I tell you what, I was surprised, Steven, and I was on the True Detective and Fargo bandwagon.
I'm with you there, and I was glad to see that that I can't remember his name now, the lead actor in Fargo, at least won. He won. What did he won a couple awards, at least one.
Fargo won Outstanding Director for a Miniseries, Movie, or Dramatic Special, Colin Buxey. It also won, if you'll give me just a second, I know it won something for writing. I mean, to get back on this True Detective, Cary Fukunaga won Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series, so there is a little love for True Detective. I do think, however, they will be back next year, even though it'll be a completely new cast. They will clean up house now that Breaking Bad is no longer on the air.
Yeah,
which, I mean,
I really feel like that's the reason they won half their awards, because it was the last season and the show was amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, not to change the subject, but I mean, Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul both. I mean, have you ever seen such humble speeches given? I mean, these are two actors who have probably been around for a long time, and this show just pretty much just proved to everyone that they really have the stuff. And the two of them working together was just probably the best combination I think I've seen in television in a long time. And I mean, the series itself, I got into it later. I wasn't exactly on transition when it actually came on, but with the help of my old friend Netflix, I actually got to watch all the episodes, and it really was just an outstanding series. But getting back to Fargo, it won the directing thing and also won Outstanding Miniseries. So a little love for my picks.
Another thing that made me happy, though, was Kathy Bates won for American Horror Story. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, her.
They won a few awards deservingly, as well as did Sherlock.
That was a surprise. I have to say that was quite a surprise. Not saying that they don't deserve it because Sherlock is a great show. I'm just saying that BBC rarely gets any love, and that's
Well, it's
always
really coming from
impressive.
PBS here in the States via BBC, obviously, but it is a co-production with Masterpiece. So
Because I know Idris Elba, he's won before for Luther,
yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch took Outstanding Lead Actor for Sherlock, which I agreed with.
and so did his cohort, Mr. Martin Freeman. He won
Yeah,
support.
Martin Freeman and Jessica Lange for American Horror Story again. I mean, they're the really kind of taken they taken everything by storm. I will tell you the biggest shocker was outstanding writing for a variety special. Sarah Silverman, We Are Miracles.
Oh, that dress was very cut. That's all I'm gonna say
Yeah.
about that.
And she was in the pre-show. She was showing off her weed vaporizer in
And
the pre-show.
you could tell Miss Silverman definitely had been hitting the champagne that night. Because she was
Always.
very loose in her speech, too.
Oh, always.
But, you
I guess it
know,
goes without
that's
saying that Jim Parsons won for outstanding lead actor in a comedy
of
series.
course.
Shocker.
I will
Comedy,
say
Modern Family.
one of the things
Another
that
non-shocker.
I know one of the things that made me just hysterical was when the Colbert Report won, and all of a sudden Jimmy Fallon comes up on the stage.
That was awesome. That was really, and he starts doing the speech as though he's Colbert. And Colbert's whispering in his ear and gets him to curse on stage.
But other than that, of course we have to think about Billy Crystal's, very very touching tribute to
Yeah, his
Robin
tribute to Robin
Williams,
Williams was touching.
which I'll never forget because I even remember this from the two of them being in Father's Day. He said that they were at what was it a Mets game or something like that, and this is when they were doing Comics Relief, him, Williams, and Whoopi Goldberg, and they made the announcer think that Robin Williams was a Russian baseball player, and he said that his team was the Reds, and a baseball came flinging past them, and he said, "I defect." Like that. But definitely very touching. And you were telling me about the Weird Al Yankovic bits.
That was really funny. He made up lyrics to all sorts of different intros to TV shows. The best being his rendition of Game of Thrones, which Andy Samberg magically appears mimicking Joffrey.
All right, folks, I'm just saying, if you know Lena Headey, you know that she is a very shy individual, and she does not take any crap because she is, on screen, she's a very vindictive woman, but in person, she seems like a very nice person. She probably was thinking to herself, "I'm going to shank you, Andy Samberg, with my Emmy if you don't leave me alone." I don't know that for a fact, but that's what my thought would be, because he was laying it on pretty thick as Joffrey.
Yeah, she took it in stride. It's part of the show.
He's not going to do it on camera.
Right.
I'm trying to think. The other, we were just talking about this beforehand. The infamous Bryan Cranston and Julia Louis-Dreyfus reunion.
Yes, that was pretty hilarious. As it kind of went through the night, as they announced one of the Emmys, and they did a whole skit where Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like, "You look familiar, like somebody I used to know. I think he was in Seinfeld, but that wasn't you." And Bryan Cranston, of course, is like, No, that was me. We made out. She's like, no, that was somebody else.
You
Then she
always
goes and win. Then she wins for Veep, and she walks up on stage, and Bryan Cranston walks up and grabs her and lays one on her for like 30 seconds, and gets down and dirty with her. And then she walks up stage, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I definitely remember him now. He definitely was in Seinfeld." It was really funny. If you didn't get to watch it, go watch it.
Oh
There's
yeah.
some pretty funny pieces, and I guess we really shouldn't gloss over. Um, the job that why are names escaping me tonight? The
Seth
host
Meyers.
did. Who hosted? Not Jimmy
Seth
Fallon. I'm sorry?
Seth Meyers.
Seth Meyers. I thought he was great. I thought he was pretty funny. He's no Ricky
Well,
Gervais by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they prefer it that way.
he's riding on Fallon's coattails. They have to give him something.
Right. And I can't let Fallon host it. I was kind of disappointed that Fallon didn't beat Colbert, to be honest with you, but it's going to be. Watching that last night really made me think like that Fallon and Colbert are really close friends, and it's really interesting to see that Colbert is going to be taking over the late night.
Yeah.
And Tonight Show, they're going to be the two late night hosts for the next 20 years for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe we'll have 20 years where the two hosts don't hate each other.
I think that's what exactly came to mind last night when after seeing Jimmy Fallon up there giving Colbert's speech for him and them running off stage all giddy. I think it's gonna be a cool different dynamic because you're not gonna have them. Yeah, like you said, Letterman and Leno hated each other. They maybe somewhat respected each other professionally, but Fallon and Colbert have, such a rapport together, and you can just see it on stage last night. I think it's going to be a cool dynamic for late night.
No, I was just saying, you said Colbert and Fallon have such a rapport together.
You like that?
I did.
Awesome. Anything else on the Emmys you want to talk about? That pretty much wraps it up for me.
No, but I am intrigued because, as we all know, Modern Family, because I think Modern Family's over now too, isn't it?
Nope.
Or it's about to end, I think.
I think this might be its last year.
Yeah, Breaking Bad's over. Colbert Report will be over. Like I said, and then we've got The Good Wife is over.
This year's. I was talking to a friend at work today about this. This year is very much like a television refresh. It is.
I mean, yeah. There's gonna be
almost a clean slate. Outside of like Big Bang Theory and Amazing Race, which have won, even though I don't even think it's that great of a show as far as unscripted television goes. But I mean, those are the only really two like big winners, if you will, from last night that are continuing on. Game of Thrones will continue on. True Detective still has a great future. We don't really know the direction it's going to go. Everything's tight-lipped on who's going to be starring in that. There were some funny quips last night during the show about that. Because nobody knows who's getting cast, or if someone has been cast, no one's saying who it is. Yeah. HBO's got a tight lid on this.
We also need to think about this. This is a couple things that made me seriously interested. Is we got no love for House of Cards at all this year. No love for House of Cards. Orange is the New Black. There's a little bit of love. No, not really much love for Netflix. But now that season 3 will be coming out next year, will House of Cards take charge again? Also, we need to think about the Newsroom is about to end.
Which is kind of sad. I think it's kind of soon to be ending Newsroom because I think that show's great.
Well, the teaser that they released the other day, they released a teaser for all the new shows coming up, Boardwalk Empire and all the others.
Yep.
Because it's ending as well. It seems like Jeff Daniels' character is going to be in some pretty hot water. But
Yeah.
it seems like it's gonna be another year because like I've heard rumors that Homeland might be ending. I've heard,
That would be bad because that's another great show didn't
and,
win any awards last night, which
and
is
I've
a
also
great
heard rumors
show.
about Scandal.
Yep.
I mean, what if next year, just hypothetically, what if next year was kind of like this too, like all of these shows ending? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The only thing I don't see ending is Big Bang Theory, even
Well,
though because they're
no.
renegotiating contracts.
Yeah.
So that show's still got another few years, based on the contracts they just signed. They just entered Friends territory as far as Jim Parsons and Kaylee Cuoco go.
Oh yeah.
So they're in Friends territory. That's probably the last contract they're doing for that show, I would imagine.
Yeah,
So that's got
probably.
a few years left. But yeah, you're right. This is like a big start this year and next year, because a lot of stuff didn't get renewed. One of the, what was, oh man, why can't I think of the NBC show about the kids that got kidnapped?
Yeah. Crisis.
Crisis. Yes, thank you. That's why you're here.
They pulled that one out of thin air.
Yeah, great. But I thought that was a good show, and they pulled the rug out from under that. I thought
Well,
they
that's
could have maybe.
NBC though. They pull everything.
Yeah, they do. It's sad. NBC, I mean, they're doing what Fox used to do. Maybe it's time just to bring Firefly back for once and for all, and just make TV whole again.
Not to keep the Emmys conversation going on for too long, but this is something I just thought about, something to think about. We are fixing to enter a territory of comic book television. What
Yes.
if Gotham was up for an Emmy? Could you imagine that? Or even Constantine, or even Daredevil, for crying out loud. I mean, it's Netflix.
We could do a whole show on these shows coming up, and that's likely something that's going to be coming up next week because there's nothing much happening in the box office.
No.
But quickly on Gotham, I'm questionable as to what's going to happen with it. Fox is a quick trigger, and they killed. I can't think of anything tonight. What was the sci-fi show they had last year with the guy from Star Trek?
Fringe.
No, not Fringe.
No. Almost Human.
Yeah, that show. That show was phenomenal. Canceled. Didn't even have bad numbers.
Sleepy Hollow. What the crap?
Yeah.
But Gotham, it's got Donald Logue in it. I've always been a Donald Logue fan. Jada Pinkett Smith is the villain. I think it's going to be on for a while. As long as NBC doesn't cancel Constantine, we're good. And NBC, you listen to me. Don't cancel it.
Yeah, that's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s the other one that's coming up that had mediocre numbers, but some of the tie-ins they really did with Marvel were really good.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's a whole nother topic. We will save that for next week. So come back next week, and John and I will dig into all the new television shows that are coming out, including Gotham, and including the next season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the next season of Arrow, which is one phenomenal show that is coming back next year. And we will get into all the nitty-gritty of this. What'd you say?
I finally finished season 1 of Arrow, and I thought season 2 was on there, but it's not. And so I was like, no.
Luckily, the internet is a beautiful thing, and if you want something bad enough, it can be found anywhere.
Yes.
So, but that is it for tonight. Come back next week. We'll talk about everything about the upcoming TV shows and what's happening in the box office, which probably won't be much. Hopefully, Sin City: A Dame to Kill For comes back. Go check it out. But that does it for us tonight for Comics Week in Review, movies and special Emmy edition. Thanks so much, and check us out on tmstash.com for all the latest news in comics, TVs, and movies. Thanks, John, for being here. Everyone else, have a great night.